talking about the next generation of managers and the next generation of technicians. I have with me Alana Dunoff. She is the adjunct professor at Temple University and also a strategic facility planner instructor for AFD Professional Services. Alana, why don't you start off, just tell me tell the crowd a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, hey everybody. So I actually chose FM as my career. I have my master's in facilities planning and management. I know I don't look it, but I have over 30 years in facilities. I started out in healthcare. I'm from the Philadelphia area. I started out in healthcare. I worked in architecture for a little while. I worked, and then was there for quite a bit, and then I eventually started my own firm. And at the same time, I thought it'd be super cool to teach. So I became an adjunct professor teaching in a couple universities. I currently teach at Temple University. We have a facilities management Bachelor's of Science program, so I'm helping to teach the emerging leaders of facilities management. And I also teach some of the FM credentials. I teach the IFMA FMP. I have a couple of my students, former students in the house. So I think a lot about and really consider myself an FM educator.
Okay. Yeah, so first, just want to start out, I guess, 50,000-foot question, and maybe it's an obvious question, but we hear a lot about the gap for the next generation of managers and technicians, but somebody who sees it every day and is teaching this, is there a gap for that next generation of managers?
Is there a gap? Yes, right? There is absolutely a gap, and I don't think that gap is closing it for a very long time. I think that there's such a shift in those who are retiring and moving out of the industry and field, and there's a lot of positions that are there and available. I know from my students at Temple that there are more job opportunities coming to them than I have students to fill. I mean, we're a small program, but even from that standpoint, there are gaps. But the numbers are actually really significant. I think one of the last numbers I saw were close to 1 million positions globally in facilities. You should be able to get any job you want, but there will be a gap for a long time.
Sure. What do you see as the biggest challenge to finding these future facilities management leaders?
The biggest challenge. So I think that one of the biggest challenges that FM has in general is we're not the sexiest of professions. I mean, I have a plunger in my bag, and I'm excited about that, right? So it doesn't draw people in. They don't see it as a profession of immediate choice. We all know it's a great profession, but it doesn't immediately come off that way. And so you have to figure out how to pull people in. And so I think the biggest challenge is it's not on the radar, right? It's not on a high school student doesn't go, I can't wait to be in facilities management when I graduate. So, it's figuring it out. We know it's a great, stable growth profession, but it doesn't have that same kind of sex appeal that I think matters when you're like, what am I going to do when I go out of college,
I know about every article, and I write a lot of profiles of facility managers. The first question I usually ask, how did you get into it? And it's always, I was a technician, or, I've had librarians. And you've just kind of found your way into the business inevitably. In your position, where do you see leaders emerging from? Are there certain industries? Are there certain backgrounds? Any kind of characteristics that you find that stand out?
So I'll answer that from two directions. So for I'll say my credential students, so my adult learners, they are every walk of life. And I think that's awesome. I've had students who were in food services, literally working in kitchens. They're like, I don't know how I got here. I'm like, well, of course you got here. You know how to if you know how to manage a kitchen, right? You can manage a facility, right? And then I've had students who were admins, who were really good at movings and being involved in the coordination of things and found their way doing more. I've had students who were in finance and sort of found their way in that way. And then, of course, there are students from the trades who found their way in. So it's as diverse as this industry is where all those students are coming from, which is an advantage for us also. It's great to have all that background of different kinds of skill sets that come into the profession, because that's what makes us stronger, because we work as teams and we have people who come in with different perspectives. And then the other, then I have my undergraduate students, and they all come in from architecture and design. They like buildings. They think they're super cool. And they've just decided that maybe design isn't their pathway, and they want to look for something different, and they like the idea that, one, if you're choosing between a career in architecture and facilities, which one's going to make more money? Well, that's pretty obvious. It's going to be facilities, sort of hands down. So that's appealing, and they like the tactical, practical functioning. You know, even my college students love the idea that facilities is different every day, as well as all the adult professionals who are coming in. I love it because facilities is different every day.
What qualities and talents do you think are required for a future or for a facilities manager or somebody who wants to get into the profession?
Curiosity. You have to want to be interested and to learn. I think you have to be adaptable to be in our profession, right? It's constantly evolving, constantly changing, so there's that kind of mindset. I think you need to like to solve problems because that's what we pretty much do all day. You also have to like people because we deal with people every day. And I think communication skills and customer service skills also become some of the critical skills that you don't think that those are necessarily the first moment. Like, notice I didn't say need to know how to turn a wrench. I mean, that's super helpful, and you can, but also being able to communicate, being able to speak, understanding finance a little bit. Just as diverse as the profession, so is the skill sets that you need. But I've been really into curiosity lately. I think asking questions, learning, and we're in a world right now where you've got lots of senior people in organizations, you have young people coming in. I keep saying my students, ask questions. Learn from all these people who have great skill sets, because that's how information and knowledge transfers, right?
Okay. One area we hadn't touched on, but you hear a lot about is veterans. And veterans are a resource where I think a lot of their skills that they learn in the military can translate over to a facilities career. Do you see that as well?
So absolutely, and as a matter of fact, I know that IFMA actually has a whole functioning around connections and relations with the military. I actually did a quick little check on that because I was pretty sure they had. But those who serve in the military have amazingly great skill sets for facilities, from logistics and operations. It is a great profession for them to dovetail in. I think that I know on the IFMA side they're really trying to encourage them to join and become involved in that way. So it is a great place. I've had students both undergrad as well as in professional development who all have military backgrounds. And I have to say they're some of my favorite students because they're organized, they're structured, they get time schedules. They're great students.
In your position at Temple with a facilities management track in a program, how rare is that, Elena? And how is it emerging, or do you see other institutions and colleges taking on similar programs, and is it becoming more popular?
There has been a steady number of FM programs. There's programs that have closed, there's programs that have opened. I think globally there's 17 or 18 programs that offer degrees in facilities management. You can now get your PhD. If you're looking for something to do, you can get your PhD in facilities management. But there are master's programs and a lot of bachelor's programs. And then there are some universities that offer some certificate programs. I know a couple community colleges that offer some associate programs in facilities. It seems to be flat, though. I think there was a burst, and it doesn't seem like there are more programs growing. I feel like we're at a steady place. It'd be nice to see more programs, particularly in large markets that would be a natural fit. I think that what I've tried to do at Temple is create an opportunity for industry to be involved, and because industry's involved, my students get really cool jobs.
I think we're going to do one more question because I know we're going to have the drawing come up, and I know we're going to promote everybody to come over for that.
Sure.
And you want to win your money. So in your role, where do you see this future of this profession, changes or trends, things like that? 50,000-foot view question.
I think that FM will continue to be FM, which means it's going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to shift. I mean, if I had said to you 6 years ago, do you know how to deal with a pandemic? You would have been like, no way, right? We're constantly in this world of evolution, which means we get to be the early adapters. We get to continue to think buildings are always going to be here. We're always going to have people in our buildings. So it's going to look the same. It's going to look different all at the same point. People say, what's the future of FM? People thought during the pandemic, buildings are going away. Yeah, right. Like, that wasn't going to happen. They've changed. How we use those spaces have changed in some cases, but also they're the foundation of our spaces and our places and our organizations. So we will see what the next thing is, and we'll continue to learn to adapt.
Great. And I guess before we go, any closing thoughts? Anything that maybe we didn't touch on?
Oh, dear. Put me on the spot now. So I don't know. I love this profession. I hope that those who are starting to think about sort of ending their career in the profession will think about giving back, whether there are local programs or teaching or opportunities to speak or speaking at conferences like this. How we transfer information and knowledge and pass that down, it's up to everyone in this profession to do. So those of you who are heading into retirement or so on, to have that curiosity as also wanting to share our knowledge so that we can continue to strengthen the next generation.
Great. Well, Alana, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for
My pleasure.
Thanks for
Thanks,
sitting in and
everybody.
listening to us. So